You have probably met this person. They clap for you, they smile, they say the right words, and somehow you leave the interaction feeling smaller, like you just gave them information, like they were not celebrating you, they were measuring you. Quick thing before we go deeper. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription genuinely helps this channel reach people who actually care about psychology, not just feel good quotes. And if this hits a nerve, hit the like button too, because it tells the algorithm this is worth surfacing. Now let us name the thing most people refuse to name. Secret competition is rarely loud. It is almost never obvious hostility. It is usually disguised as interest, humour, mentorship, even friendship. And the reason it is so confusing is that part of them might genuinely like you. That is what makes it psychologically sophisticated. You are not dealing with a villain. You are dealing with a person whose status system is activated around you. Here is what I have observed and what social psychology supports. Competition is not primarily about winning. It is about rank stability. Humans are hypersensitive to shifts in the pecking order, especially inside small social ecosystems like teams, friend groups, families, and online niches. When someone feels their rank is threatened by your progress, they do not always attack you. Often they try to manage the meaning of your progress. And once you see that, the signs stop looking random. The first sign is what I call selective curiosity. They ask you questions that look supportive, but the questions always produce comparable metrics. Not "are you enjoying it?" but "how much are you making now?" Not "how is your training going?" but "what is your mile time?" Not "how did the interview feel?" but "what level is the role?" Notice the pattern here. They are not building intimacy, they are building a scoreboard. The mechanism behind this is social comparison theory. Your brain does not evaluate success in a vacuum. It evaluates success relative to a reference group. So a competitor needs data. They need to know if you are above them, below them, or approaching them. And they will pretend it is casual, because if they admit they are tracking you, they lose moral status. They want competitive information without the social cost of being seen as competitive. Let me show you what I mean in real life. You tell them you started a side project. They say, "That is awesome." Then, 2 seconds later, "How many followers do you have?" Or you mention you are dating someone. "So happy for you." Then, "How serious is it? What do they do? How attractive are they?" It is not interest in your experience, it is interest in your position. And here is the tell almost nobody talks about. Watch what happens when you do not provide the metric. If you answer with emotion instead of numbers, they get slightly irritated or they lose attention. Because you just refuse to feed the ranking system. Most friends move closer when you share feelings. Competitors move closer when you share measurements. Now stay with me, because the next sign is counterintuitive. The second sign is strategic encouragement. They encourage you, but always toward choices that preserve their advantage. This is not obvious sabotage. It is something more subtle, steering. They will push you toward the version of your goal that sounds noble but is inefficient. They will recommend the path that takes longer, costs more, or keeps you dependent. They do it with plausible deniability because even they may not fully realize what they are doing. The psychology here is what researchers call self-serving bias mixed with motivated reasoning. They can sincerely believe their advice is what is best, while their unconscious is filtering for one requirement: you do not outpace them. So you say you want to start a business. They say, you should get another certification first. You say you want to apply for a higher role. They say, maybe wait until you have more experience. You say you want to publish your work. They say, you should not rush it, make it perfect. And notice how safe the advice is. Notice how slow it is. Notice how it delays visibility. And if you take the advice and you stall, they feel calmer around you. If you ignore the advice and you move faster, they become oddly tense. Not angry, just watchful, like you change the weather in the room. Here is where it gets interesting. True support is expensive. Real supporters will sometimes tell you something that makes you more powerful, even if it makes them feel behind. Competitors cannot do that consistently. They will support you only in directions that do not threaten the current hierarchy. Third sign, they react more to your momentum than to your outcome. Most people think competition shows up as jealousy when you win. But secret competition often shows up earlier, when you are simply accelerating. Because momentum is what predicts future rank. In evolutionary terms, your brain cares less about who has the biggest antlers right now and more about who is growing antlers fastest. Growth rate is threat. So you might not even have the result yet. You just got serious. You started posting regularly. You started training consistently. You started networking, and suddenly they appear. They start checking in. They start making comments. They start joking about your new personality. They start mentioning how you are obsessed now. That word, obsessed, is a favorite tool because it reframes your discipline as pathology. It is an attempt to morally downgrade your progress. Not you are improving, but you are compensating. Not you found direction, but you are insecure. If they can turn your momentum into a character flaw, they can protect their status without ever saying they feel threatened. Think about this for a second. When you were stagnant, they were relaxed. When you started moving, they started narrating. And that brings me to the fourth sign, which is almost diagnostic. They control the story around your success. A secret competitor does not just watch what you do. They try to pre-install an explanation for it that reduces what it means. This is narrative sabotage. It sounds like, well, you got lucky, or that is easy for you because you have connections, or of course you did well, you do not have kids, or yeah, but you are naturally talented. Notice what all of these do. They remove agency, they remove effort, they remove replicability, they prevent others from updating their view of you. Why does that matter? Because status is social. It is not just what you accomplish, it is what the group agrees your accomplishment signifies. If the group agrees it signifies skill, your rank rises. If the group agrees it signifies luck or unfair advantage, your rank does not rise as much. A competitor is trying to shape the group's interpretation, not necessarily your behavior. This is why some people will compliment you in a way that shrinks you. I could never do that. I am too much of a perfectionist. Translation: I am not behind you. I am just different in a superior way. Or they say, I love that you are confident enough to post like that. Translation: I would be embarrassed, but you do not have my standards. Now here is a micro-test that is brutal but revealing. Pay attention to whether they can repeat your success story in a way that makes you look competent. Not just happy, not just lucky, but competent. If they consistently cannot do that, you are not dealing with pure support. Now let us do a midpoint flip, because this recontextualizes everything. The most dangerous competitor is not the one who hates you. It is the one who needs you. They need you as a reference point. They need you as a mirror that tells them who they are. That is why they track you. That is why your movement makes them anxious. Your improvement forces them to renegotiate their identity. If they have been the smart one and you start learning faster, that threatens their core self-story. If they have been the attractive one and you glow up, that threatens their currency. If they have been the successful one and you start catching up, they feel existentially exposed. So the next sign is dependence disguised as closeness. They want to be near your process, not just your personality. They want behind-the-scenes access. They want early information. They want to be the first to know because early knowledge is leverage. Watch for this. They get unusually interested when you are in the middle of something, but less interested once you have stabilized. They want the beta version of you, because the beta version is where they can influence direction, extract insight, and compare trajectories. This is why some competitors become helpers. They offer feedback, they offer collaboration, they offer introductions, and sometimes it is real. But the hidden function is surveillance plus control. If they are in the loop, your success feels less like your success and more like a shared project where they can claim proximity credit. That leads to another sign that is subtle. They keep receipts. A supporter forgets what they did for you because the point was you. A competitor remembers every microfavor because it becomes a claim. Later, if you rise, they can say, "I was there from the beginning." Or worse, "You owe me." That is not generosity. That is investment with expected returns. Now let me give you a sign that is almost never mentioned. Their emotional timing is off. They do not necessarily feel bad when you fail. Sometimes they feel relieved. And they do not necessarily feel happy when you win. Sometimes they feel busy. The key is not what they say, it is the micro delay. A half second too long before the smile. A response that is technically positive but emotionally thin. People call this intuition, but there is a real mechanism, emotional contagion. When someone is aligned with you, your wins lift them. When someone is competing with you, your wins activate threat circuitry and they have to mask it. So you might notice they are warm when you talk about struggles. They become cooler when you talk about progress. Not because they are evil, because your progress threatens the stability of their self-concept. Now here is the part that gives you actual power, not paranoia. How do you tell the difference between a secret competitor and a socially awkward supporter? Because if you misread this, you can destroy good relationships. You do not diagnose competition by one behavior. You diagnose it by a three-part pattern: measurement, meaning, and proximity. Measurement means they repeatedly seek rank data, not once, repeatedly. Meaning means they repeatedly downgrade what your progress signifies, especially in front of others or in ways that remove your agency. Proximity means they repeatedly try to stay close to your process, your plans, your next steps, especially when you are gaining momentum. If you see all three, you are not imagining it. You are seeing a stable strategy. Now let us talk about the core model that ties this whole thing together. Secret competition is not hatred, it is a form of status regulation. In any social group, there are two economies running at the same time. There is the explicit economy, where people talk about values like kindness, teamwork, authenticity, and there is the implicit economy, where the brain tracks attention, respect, influence, and desirability. People are trained to speak in the explicit economy while acting in the implicit one. A secret competitor is someone whose implicit economy is active around you, but who cannot admit it without losing face. So they do regulation moves. They gather data, they steer you, they manage narrative, they seek proximity, all while performing friendliness. Once you understand this, you stop taking it personally, not in a numb way, in a precise way. You realize their behavior is not a statement about your worth. It is a statement about their internal ranking system. So what do you do with that? You do not confront them with, "You are jealous." That is amateur hour. All that does is force them to deny and get smarter. Instead, you change the environment the competition feeds on. First, reduce the supply of metrics. Speak in experiences, not numbers. Give fewer trackable updates, not as secrecy, but as boundary. Your life is not a public dashboard. Second, protect your meaning. When you share wins, narrate your own causality. Mention the process, the trade-offs, the skills. Not to brag, but to anchor interpretation. You are teaching the group what your success actually means so someone else cannot install a weaker story. Third, control proximity. Not by cutting everyone off, but by separating relationship from access. Some people get your friendship, not your strategy. They get your presence, not your plans. And here is the ultimate test that ends the confusion. Tell them good news that does not benefit them at all, and watch whether they move toward you or away from you. Support moves toward. Competition moves into analysis, jokes, silence, nanny or sudden topic changes. If you have been feeling that weird tension, that sense of being watched, this is why. Your nervous system is picking up rank management, not affection. So here is the closing thought I want to leave you with. The moment you become more intentional, you become a mirror. And some people do not hate you. They just cannot stand what your reflection forces them to see. If this made you think of someone specific, do not name them in the comments. Name the pattern you noticed. And next time you feel that strange shrink in the room after your good news, ask yourself one clean question. Are they connecting with me, or are they calibrating against me?